A man who once stood under the bright lights of a national singing competition is now sitting alone in a jail cell, not in front of judges, not chasing a record deal, but waiting for trial in one of the most disturbing cases to shock a quiet Ohio community. Former American Idol contestant Caleb Flynn is currently being held in solitary confinement after being arrested in connection with the death of his wife. And the details surrounding the case have left many people asking the same question. How did a man who once chased a music dream end up at the center of such a devastating investigation? The story begins in mid-February in the quiet town of Tip City, Ohio. According to authorities, everything changed during the middle of the night inside the Flynn family home. Police say Flynn called 911 claiming an intruder had broken into the house and shot his wife, Ashley Flynn, while she was in their bedroom. At the time, their two young children were reportedly sleeping in another room of the house, unaware of the chaos unfolding nearby. Emergency responders rushed to the scene after Flynn's call, initially treating the situation as a possible home invasion. But as investigators began examining the scene, something about the story didn't sit right. According to prosecutors, certain details inside the house didn't match the version of events Flynn had described. As investigators looked closer, the situation quickly shifted from a suspected break-in to something far more serious. Authorities later charged Flynn with murder, felonious assault, and tampering with evidence. Prosecutors claim the crime scene may have been staged in an attempt to make the shooting look like the work of an intruder. The sudden change in the narrative stunned both the community and people who remembered Flynn from his brief appearance on television years earlier. For many viewers, Flynn's name first surfaced during auditions for American Idol, where aspiring singers from across the country tried to launch their careers. While he didn't become one of the show's biggest stars, his appearance still left behind a digital footprint that fans would later rediscover. Back then, Flynn spoke openly about his life, his music, and the support he received from his wife and family. At the time, the image presented to viewers was that of a husband chasing a dream while raising a family. That's why the headlines appearing more than a decade later felt so shocking to many who came across them. Once the charges were filed, Flynn was taken into custody and booked into the Miami County Jail. The court later set his bond at $2 million. During early court proceedings, Flynn reportedly entered a not guilty plea. Legal experts say cases like this often take months, or sometimes even years, before reaching a full trial, especially when investigators are still gathering evidence and building timelines. But while the legal battle slowly moves forward, Flynn's day-to-day life has already changed dramatically. According to information shared by jail sources, Flynn has been placed in solitary confinement while he awaits trial. Officials say the decision was made partly because of the high-profile nature of the case. In situations like this, isolation is sometimes used to keep inmates safe from others who may attempt to confront them or create problems inside the facility. Reports suggest that other inmates have already asked guards about Flynn, which is one reason corrections officers are limiting contact between him and the general population. Life inside solitary confinement is very different from what most people imagine. Flynn is reportedly housed in a single cell where he spends most of his time alone. Jail staff monitor him constantly using both cameras and routine checks, reportedly looking in on him roughly every 30 minutes to make sure everything is normal. Even basic daily routines are tightly controlled. He receives 3 meals a day inside the cell, and most of his time is spent there without interaction from other inmates. However, that doesn't mean the isolation is completely silent. Sources say Flynn does have access to a jail-issued tablet. Through that device, he can make phone calls, read digital letters that are scanned into the system, and even watch certain approved movies. The content is filtered under jail rules, but it still gives inmates a limited connection to the outside world. He is also reportedly allowed to shower once a day and sometimes twice if necessary. Recreation time is another tightly scheduled part of life behind bars. Flynn is said to receive around 5 hours of recreation each week. During that time, corrections officers escort him to a secured outdoor area on the jail grounds. The space allows inmates to get fresh air and walk around briefly before returning to their cells. Even during these moments, supervision remains strict. Family contact is also limited. Reports suggest Flynn is allowed to communicate with relatives through monitored video visits. But some things that exist in certain prison systems are not permitted in this situation. For example, conjugal visits are not allowed at the facility where Flynn is currently being held. Outside the jail walls, the case continues to leave a deep impact on the local community. Friends and neighbors have spoken about remembering Ashley as a caring person who was active in her community and dedicated to her family. Tributes and messages of support for the couple's children quickly appeared as news of the case spread across social media and national headlines. Meanwhile, the legal process is only just beginning. Investigators will continue reviewing evidence. Attorneys on both sides will prepare their arguments, and eventually the case will move toward a courtroom where the facts will be examined in detail. Until that moment arrives, many of the biggest questions remain unanswered. The story of Caleb Flynn has quickly become one of the most dramatic falls from reality TV recognition to criminal allegations. What once started as a pursuit of music and opportunity has now turned into a legal battle that could shape the rest of his life. And as the case moves forward, one question continues to linger over everything. What really happened inside that house on the night Ashley Flynn lost her life? Only time and the court system will determine the final answer.